Brisbane is overflowing with different kinds of talent and different kinds of shows.
They've created some of the best spaces that have bridged the gaps between drag, burlesque, stand-up, dance, all of these places, and really built this community to where it is now.
All these people come out who only watch Drag Race, they only support that drag. They'll be like, oh, we never knew this existed, when it was literally like right underneath their nose the whole time.
I really would love for Brisbane to be seen in that same light, because we have world-class drag here. Just because there's not as many of us doesn't mean we're not as good. In terms of drag queens in Brisbane, there's probably nobody who does a greater variation of gigs than I do. A drag brunch audience, for example, is similar to a hen's party audience. So I'd say they're kind of a similar market for drag. And I'd say it's a very new market for drag as well that has always been waiting there, but we're finally giving them what they want. So a drag brunch, typically you walk in there and I'd say the average age is between about 35 and 50. And I would say 70% of the people in the room are probably women. So you go in there and it's like your mum or your auntie or somebody who wants to come and see drag, and they can't get out in the night and they want to just come and see us get out there and be bold and brave and be ourselves. Every single week at Drag Brunch, I'll have somebody come up to me who's like 40 years old or 50 years old, who come up to me at the end and just like be crying, be like, I've had the best day of my life, I'm so proud, you just keep being you. And I think that comes from a place where these people have never really been exposed to such aggressive self-expression. Like, that's such a foreign concept for so many people. So for them to get a little peek behind the curtain into this fabulous gay world of drag that we have, creates such a strong emotional response.
My first experience with drag was I started going to drag bars and clubs. I would see the queens on stage, who now I'm very close friends with, or they're part of my drag family. But I would see them and I would see them on stage performing in these lavish looks and showing the best sides of themselves and their personalities and their art form. And I thought, that is what I should be doing. And then I would just sit at home, you know, in my little room, practicing some makeup looks, seeing how I could find my version of drag, bring out what was in me to the surface. The first time I went out in drag, I went to Fluffy. This was back when Fluffy was at the warehouse. I had a flat platinum 613 blonde wig that wasn't styled. I bought this pink pantsuit from, I think it was Bardot, and I just went out and I was feeling myself, feeling so pussy. You know, everyone starts somewhere. You gotta start looking busted and then you finesse it to work your way up. You know, as soon as those queens I was talking about saw me out in drag, they were like, yes, you did it. You made the first step. You didn't just put on the drag, you left the house, which honestly doesn't sound like a big deal, but that is a huge first step, to be comfortable enough for the first time to go out in drag. And just having that support and the love from people in the community was so important to me, because it made me feel comfortable and confident enough to continue. It was a great experience. The look wasn't great, but it was a great experience, and that's what matters.
Me and my friend actually started drag makeup through lockdown on Zoom, pretty much. We would just like call every few weeks and we'd try out different makeup, and it was definitely a big learning experience, but we got there in the end. About 1.5 years into it, I started to explore drag near me and what was surrounding me, and it was just like so eye-opening, and I just was like so drawn to it in a way that I've like never felt drawn to anything before. It kind of just like scooped in together all my favorite things of everything, like crafting things, sewing, makeup, hair, and performing. And I just was like, it just feels so correct. So then I went for my first performance, and it was my first drag show I ever went to and watched as well. So it was just like, oh my gosh, it was like the whole world opened up for me. And ever since then, I just haven't looked back.
When you go to a Willow show, most of the time what you would see is a lot of leg, a lot of nudity, and just a bit of stupidity, to be honest, at this point. I just like getting up on stage and being an absolute menace to society. A lot of my influences early on weren't really from the drag world, they were more from video games and from classic horror films. This was recently after the Slaying Mantis, who is an incredible performer, had just won the first ever Fluffy Starlet, so everyone had seen what she was doing as this crazy alien seductress and thought, I want to be like that. You can take a look at any video game character, any femme fatale, and they're just gorgeous. They just look impeccable. Usually they're a bit unrealistic, but so is drag. So I just took one look at a lot of those characters, like Ivy from Soul Calibur, several characters from Mortal Kombat, and I just kind of ran with it. This is a gorgeous, lovely rose gown, which was made by Jose, who is an incredible cosplayer and designer. The outfit itself is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in drag, and I honestly can say that this is probably my favorite outfit, just because of how grand it is, how gorgeous it is, and yeah, I would sleep in this if I could, but I don't want to overheat and die. I feel like I'm frankly the only person who's existed whenever I wear this. I also feel like an absolutely sweaty menace every time I wear it. So this one doesn't leave the house much, but she's just unreal, honestly. I had never worn something that was commissioned and custom made for me. It was always things that we would make at home the night before, and we didn't really have any sewing experience. So going from that to this was just mind-blowing. So I think with drag, a lot of the time when you start off, you kind of have no idea what to do, and going from that to be able to have pieces like this, be able to get booked regularly, and when you've been doing it a few years, it definitely validates your feeling as an artist, because you're able to look back and go, holy shit, look where I am now compared to a few years ago. And it's just the best feeling on earth, but my God, your bank account will hurt.
Makeup is something that initially is quite a bit of an investment, but once you know what products are good for you, it's just about maintaining that. When I set up my makeup collection, it was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, over $1,000 initially in the first few years of trying to build up that collection. But once you know what products work for you, it's just a matter of like keeping things topped up. Hair, I'd say, is a very costly thing, because especially when you're a very aggressive performer like me, hair falls out of style, so it needs to be restyled. So I spend a lot of money on either paying professional stylists to do it or my own time. And then your outfits as well. I think when you get to a certain standard of drag, people do expect to see you in kind of unique, one-of-a-kind things. Especially now with Drag Race, people expect to see a high level of drag, and I think if you want to do well and if you want to succeed in this industry, you do have to keep up to some extent. If you can't afford to get things custom made, like getting a jacket, like thrifting a jacket, and maybe like making it look fitted so it looks like it's been customized to your body, like there are really clever ways of customizing outfits and creating a stage-ready head-to-toe look. So a lot of the vintage look isn't so much about the garments on top, but it's about those structures that are underneath the clothing. This is my like Dior style petticoat. So this sits at the waist, and this helps create that really big billow out from the hips there, and helps create that beautiful kind of like new look Dior style silhouette that was popular in the late 40s and the early 50s. So this would be combined with something like a steel bone corset, which I often wear it with. So this sits here at the waist, cinches me in, and then this sits underneath the skirt, puffs it out, so it creates that beautiful kind of like, that romantic, feminine 1950s shape that a lot of people think of when they think of that era. But obviously with my boy body, we've got to do a lot of work with that, so it's all about the undergarments.
This one is probably the most special to me at the moment, just because of the memories I made in this dress. It was just the time in my career when I started to feel really confident and secure, and like I could do anything and take on the world. And honestly, when I wear this, that's how I feel, you know, just swishing it all around. It's a beautiful like mix of fierceness, but also beauty. And I think just the way the corset sits on me, like this corset specifically, I've got a lot of corsets, but this one specifically sits on me in just a way that makes me feel really, you know, tight. And yeah, it was an incredible moment for me to like see myself in this full realized look, and like look at myself in the mirror and be like, you know what, you are that bitch, and you deserve everything because you are everything.
Helen Wheels is a fun-time performer. She likes to inspire people any way she can. I just adore drag. It's one of my favourite things to do. You will see me doing burnouts on the stage. You'll see me be multiple props, taxi included. Oh, you could even see me hopefully not fall off the stage. But my favourite numbers to do are my upbeat numbers where I get to create a prop for my wheelchair and use my wheelchair as part of my performance. I started doing drag because I've always had an interest in the creative field, and like when I was in school I did performing arts, and I thought, what am I gonna do when I graduate? I didn't want a career where you just sit down in an office and type away. I wanted to be creative, so I chose drag, and I guess I just wanted something more fancy, fabulous and creative that made people happy and made people smile. This is why I'm still here today, 4 years later. I have quite a following on TikTok. How it all started is I was posting videos of me just doing my makeup, and half the time they went a little bit viral, and I was like, oh no, here we go. There was one TikTok I remember that got 7 million views, and I was just like, oh, it's not gonna be that bad. And then I read the comments and I was just like, oh, you inspire me, and then I get really bad comments like, you shouldn't be doing this, or why are you doing this, you look crusty, you look dusty. And I just go, sometimes my makeup isn't gonna be the best because I am in a wheelchair, and my disability, sometimes my hands get sore while I'm doing my makeup. And I just say to them, at least I've got a lot more guts than they do. Posting on a big platform, I really barely listen to the comments because it's a reflection on them and not a reflection on me. Some people even say that their child has a disability and how much I inspire them. That's very uplifting for me because this is the reason why I do it. I don't do it to spread any negativity. I only do drag to be positive and prove to people that if they put their mind to it, they can do anything.
I think what drag does is it breaks down the idea of gender. I think especially with young adults and adolescents, there's a lot of pressure to feel like you fit into a box, like, oh, I'm a gay man, or I'm a lesbian woman, or I'm a cisgender woman, or I'm bisexual. I think drag dismantles that. Once you start doing it, you realize that none of it actually matters, and all those things that you worried about are actually out the window now, because drag fully breaks it down and makes you realize that femininity and masculinity are they're just things that society have created. Like, this wig is only feminine because time has told us that, society and time has told us that. But it's just synthetic hair put into some nice curls, like it doesn't have a gender. And I think drag helps make you realize that. Yeah, there definitely is a perception that, especially people who don't know much about drag, it's a perception that it's like, oh, it's a man in a wig. But I think now people are realizing that drag is not that. Drag is whatever you want it to be. Drag is an exaggerated form. It is art, it is escapism. It's pretty much creating a fantasy and sharing that with people. So no, even though drag does explore ideas of gender, it doesn't actually have a gender in itself.
There has been this big shift in the last few years, which has been wonderful to see people from all walks of life coming to do drag. That is something that has elevated the variety in our scene. The first one that comes to mind who's been incredibly influential since I started drag is Henny Spaghetti. I'd been doing drag for about a year, and she came into this competition called Smackdown, which is at a very traditional club in Brisbane called the Sportsman Hotel, that has been there for decades and decades, and have some very long-held views about the art of drag and who should be doing it. And she came into this competition and absolutely dominated it. And I was in the audience the night that she won, and I could have like ripped my clothes off then and there and streaked like it was a soccer game. I was so happy when she won. And even that caused a bit of protest, and there was people who were complaining and people stormed out. And she's gone on to have a permanent residency there. She's gone on to star in massive touring shows around the country. And I'd say she's probably a big influence on people in Brisbane who are like her, who want to explore drag. The likes of Ladybird, Dolly Kicks, Barbie Banks, who I believe is non-binary, all these other performers and stuff in Brisbane who have come out and followed in Henny's footsteps.
Drag audience are definitely becoming more accepting to different forms of drag and different people of different genders doing drag. It's not just about like, it has to be female impersonation. It can be drag kings, drag queens, drag artists. It can be clowns, it can be just stupidity. It doesn't have to make sense. It can be anything. And I think people are starting to realize that, so they're starting to accept it more.
So what makes Brisbane drag different, or what separates us from other states in Australia, is definitely a sense of the community that we have built here. The love and support you get from your inner circle or from the wider community even, it's essential to fostering and building your drag persona and being successful as well. There's so many opportunities for people to experience and enjoy Brisbane drag, and yeah, the best way to do that is to get off your ass and experience it. If you want artsy drag, go to Melbourne. If you want pretty queens who stand there, go to Sydney. But if you want a motherfucking show, you come to Brisbane and everyone knows it. Trust.